After serving 25 long years behind bars, 68-year-old Margaret finally walked out of the prison gates. A free woman, but freedom didn't feel warm. It felt terrifying. She had no family left, no friends, no one waiting for her. Only an old, half-broken house she barely remembered owning. When the taxi dropped her off, the neighborhood stared, some with pity, some with fear, some with judgment. Margaret clutched a small plastic bag, everything she owned in the world, and stepped toward her porch. But before she could reach the door, she froze, because sitting silently in the doorway, perfectly still, perfectly alert, was a German Shepherd, a dog she had never seen before. Its eyes were locked on her, its posture tense, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. But what this dog knew, and what it had been guarding for 25 years, would change Margaret's entire life. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. 25 years was a long time to forget what freedom felt like. The cold morning air brushed against her cheeks, sharper than she remembered, almost accusing. With slow, uncertain steps, she walked forward, clutching a small plastic bag, the sum of her entire life now. A taxi waited by the curb, the driver avoiding her eyes. People rarely looked at former inmates kindly. As they drove through the city, Margaret pressed her forehead against the window, watching a world she no longer recognized. Buildings stood taller, streets looked narrower, and faces seemed harder. When the taxi stopped in front of her old house, her breath caught in her throat. The white paint had peeled away, the porch sagged with age, and the windows stared back like tired eyes. Neighbors paused to look at her, some whispering, some frowning, some simply curious. Margaret took a shaky step forward, unsure if she belonged anywhere anymore. Margaret's hand trembled as she reached the bottom step of the porch. But before she could climb the first stair, she froze, because there, sitting perfectly still in the doorway, was a German Shepherd. Its ears were raised, eyes fixed on her with unsettling intensity. It didn't bark, didn't move. It simply watched her, as if studying every breath she took. Margaret's heartbeat quickened. She had never owned a dog, never even liked being near one. So why was it here? At her house. The dog's posture wasn't aggressive, yet something about its unwavering stare made her chest tighten. Slowly, the dog stood up and took one step backward into the dimly lit doorway, almost like it was inviting her inside. Margaret swallowed hard. Who left you here?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. No answer, just the dog's calm, unblinking gaze. Margaret glanced around. No neighbors watching. No open gates. No vehicles nearby. The dog had no leash, no collar tag. Nothing. And yet, somehow, it looked like it had been waiting for her. Margaret stepped cautiously inside, her breath catching as the hinges groaned behind her. The house smelled of dust and forgotten years, but something else lingered too, a faint warmth, as if someone had been here recently. The German Shepherd walked ahead with steady confidence, glancing back at her every few steps, almost guiding her. The living room was exactly as she remembered, yet strangely different. Her old armchair sat in the same corner, but the floor around it was swept clean. A blanket she didn't recognize lay folded neatly on the couch, and there, beside the wall, stood a stainless steel water bowl filled to the brim. A dog toy rested beside it, new, untouched. Margaret frowned. No one had keys to her house. No one even cared she was coming home. She followed the dog as it turned down the narrow hallway. Her footsteps echoed on the wooden floor as she passed family photos coated in dust. The dog stopped at a small drawer built into the wall, a drawer she knew had always been stuck shut. Now it was slightly open. Inside lay a stack of envelopes, each one addressed to her. Margaret's hands trembled as she lifted the first envelope. The paper had yellowed with age, yet the handwriting remained steady, familiar, though she couldn't place it. She opened it carefully. Her breath hitched. It was from Officer Raymond Halley, the young policeman present the day she was arrested. She remembered his eyes back then, uncertain, conflicted, almost apologetic. And now, through the letter, his voice returned. "Margaret, I never believed you were guilty." Her knees weakened. She sank onto the edge of a dusty bench as she read on. Raymond wrote about a promise he had made to protect her home until the truth surfaced. He had adopted a German Shepherd puppy the very night she was sentenced, training it to guard her house in her absence. Letter after letter revealed decades of devotion. Each year, he wrote updates, confessions, doubts, clues, all while raising new generations of dogs trained for one mission: to wait for her return. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. The dog beside her wasn't a coincidence. It was the last guardian in a 25-year promise. Margaret reached the final envelope, its edges softer, ink slightly smudged, as if held many times before being sealed. Her fingers hesitated. Something about this one felt heavier. She opened it slowly, unfolding a letter written in shakier handwriting. "If you're reading this, Margaret, it means I'm gone." Her heart cracked. Officer Raymond's words spilled across the page, filled with regret and urgency. He confessed that, before his death, he had uncovered evidence pointing to the real criminal, the man who framed her. Fearing it would be destroyed, he hid the proof inside her house, but he didn't leave her guessing. "The dog knows where it is." As if on cue, the German Shepherd stood abruptly and trotted toward the far corner of the hallway. Margaret followed, breath-tight, watching as the dog pawed at a loose floorboard. Her pulse thundered. She knelt, lifted the board, and froze. Beneath it lay documents, photos, and a sealed cassette labeled "The Truth." Margaret clutched the cassette and documents, her hands trembling as though she held her entire life in her palms. The evidence was undeniable. The real culprit had confessed years ago, his words recorded in chilling detail. Raymond had preserved everything, waiting for the day she would return and claim the justice stolen from her. Within hours, detectives reopened her case. Officers moved through her home with urgency, gathering files while Margaret sat on the porch, the German Shepherd pressed against her leg like a silent guardian. For the first time in decades, she felt the faint warmth of hope. When the officers drove away, promising to clear her name, Margaret looked down at the dog. Its amber eyes reflected loyalty so deep it nearly broke her. "You stayed," she whispered, stroking its head gently. "After everyone else left, you stayed." The dog curled beside her, resting its head in her lap. And in that quiet moment, Margaret realized she wasn't alone anymore.